You've heard the word shareholder thrown around all the time, right? But what does it actually mean? Well, in the next few minutes, we're going to break down exactly who they are, what they get, and the kind of power they hold. Let's dive right in.
So let me just ask you this. Have you ever kind of dreamt of owning a piece of a huge, successful company, but, without all the headaches of actually running the thing day to day? Well, that idea, that's exactly where our story begins.
All right, first up, who is a shareholder really? Let's introduce our main character here with a simple, kind of fun metaphor, the silent actor.
Okay, so think of a shareholder as a silent actor in a big blockbuster movie. When you buy a share, you've basically bought a tiny, tiny slice of that business. You get to enjoy the success, the profits, but you're not the one responsible for the daily grind. Nope, you don't have to remember any lines. You just get to sit back and enjoy the show's success. Pretty cool, huh?
But look, owning a piece of a company isn't just a title. It comes with some very real potential rewards and, of course, risks. To really get what's in it for them, let's talk about something I like to call the shareholder's cookie jar.
So just imagine for a second that your investment is a cookie jar. When you invest, you're putting a certain number of cookies into it. And the goal, obviously, is to see that number of cookies grow over time.
Now, this cookie jar has two sides to it. On the one hand, you've got the gains. Some companies pay out what are called dividends, which are basically a share of the profits. You can think of these as the company baking fresh cookies and adding them right into your jar. Now, not all companies do this, of course. A lot of high-growth companies will reinvest those profits to get even bigger. But then there's the other side, the risks. If the company doesn't do so well or the market takes a hit, the value of your shares can go down. It's kind of like the market reaches in and snacks on a few of your cookies.
So, for example, let's say you start out with 10 cookies in your jar. After a really good year for the company, you might have 12. Awesome. But then a bad year might come along, and that could leave your jar with only 8. The key thing here is that the value isn't static. It's always moving up and down.
So the whole point, the crucial thing to remember is this. While there are definitely going to be ups and downs, the long-term goal for any shareholder is simple, to see their cookie jar get fuller over time. It's all about that sweet, sweet cookie economics.
But being a shareholder isn't always a passive thing. You're not just sitting on the sidelines watching your cookie jar. You actually have a voice. You have a chance to get on stage. It's your turn at the mic. Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. Every year, public companies hold something called an annual general meeting, or AGM. And you can totally think of it as the big stage for shareholders. It's like karaoke night for investors, except instead of singing off key, you're helping to influence the company's future. So how do you actually use that voice? Well, it's a pretty simple three-step process, really. First, you get the annual report to see how the company's been doing. Then, you attend the meeting. And these days, you can often do that virtually from your couch. And third, and this is the most important part, you vote. Your shares give you a real say on key decisions. Everything from electing the board of directors to approving how much the top execs get paid. It's your right as a part owner. Now, there's one really common point of confusion we absolutely have to clear up. You hear the words shareholder and stakeholder a lot, and sometimes people use them like they're the same thing. They are not. Let's look at the shapes of finance to figure out the difference.
And honestly, the best way to think about this is to go all the way back to geometry class. Remember this one? All squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares. Just keep that little phrase in your head for a second.
So in this analogy, shareholders are the square. They own a piece of the company, equity, and they're mostly focused on getting a financial return on their investment. Makes sense. Stakeholders, though, they're the rectangle. It's a much, much broader group. This is basically anyone with an interest or a stake in the company's success. We're talking employees, customers, suppliers, even the local community.
So let's just nail this down one more time so it really sticks. Because shareholders own a piece of the company, they are automatically stakeholders. But an employee or a loyal customer, they have a clear interest in the company, but if they don't own shares, they're a stakeholder, but not a shareholder. It's a simple but super important distinction. All right, so we've covered who shareholders are, the potential cookie jar rewards, and the power they can have. Now let's zoom out and wrap this up by looking at the bigger picture, the great stock adventure.
And let's be totally clear about something. Investing in the stock market is not a walk in the park. It can be a wild, really unpredictable ride. There are going to be highs, there are going to be lows, and plenty of twists and turns. It definitely requires patience and a good strategy.
It's an adventure that can be so worth taking, but you have to be prepared. And there's a great piece of advice that goes, dive in, but remember to keep your financial floaties on. In other words, do your homework,
understand the risks, and never, ever invest more than you can truly afford to lose.
So, there you have it, the basics of what it means to be a shareholder. It's way more than just a number on a screen. It's about ownership, it's about influence, and it's about potential growth. You've got the foundation now, so the only real question left is, what are you going to explore next?